welcome for the first time to Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, Congresswoman Valerie Foushee of North Carolina. This week, Congresswoman, Donald Trump delivered the State of the Union address. You made the decision not to attend. You also didn't attend last year. So can you share a little bit about your decision and your thoughts on the current State of the Union?
Absolutely, and thank you for this opportunity. I think we pretty much knew that the president was going to paint a picture that was not a true picture of the State of the Union. I think that from what I heard last year to his joint address to Congress was indicative of what we might hear last night. So it was not, I thought, in any of our best interests to hear the lies. He put on a show, as I was able to see this morning from what the pundits put forward and clips from the address. But to make it a show about to whom he was going to give medals, um, you know, raising the hockey team and giving 12 minutes of airtime to that. And then to talk about how great things are. Well, I don't know where he's looking, but when I hear from my constituents, they're not speaking to me about greatness. What they're talking to me about is affordability. They're talking to me about accountability. They're talking to me about our democracy as it relates to our election system. And they're talking to me about ICE and how ICE is a rogue agency that is not only detaining citizens of this country, but is being allowed to kill citizens in our streets, and there not be investigations into their actions. So that's what I'm hearing from people. People are talking about the rising price of groceries, the rising prices of housing, the rising prices of energy, and medical care. So I didn't want to waste any of my time listening to him lie.
Yeah, I think you are correct in regards to we've been visiting Black women from across this
Hmm.
country and hearing similar things around their concern, right? Black women and frankly, our neighbors want economically thriving,
Sure.
educated, and healthy, and safe communities. Actually, with your time in Washington, you have been active on several committees. You're currently serving on the House Committee on Science, Space, Technology as the ranking member, on the Space Subcommittee, and on the Energy Subcommittee, which is an important conversation we're having
Mhm.
because it's connected to climate change and how we are ensuring that
Absolutely.
we're leaving a sustainable, globe to our children and our grandchildren. You also sit on the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, which is an important committee, particularly as it relates to how y'all are building transportation infrastructure in the
Absolutely.
South. Because you're sitting on aviation, railroads, pipelines, and
And
hazardous.
has it
Um,
materials.
so share a
Mhm.
little bit about that work and what are some of the challenges that you're facing in those committees, and what are some of the proud legislative moments you've had during your term?
So thank you for that question. Indeed, I do sit on the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee on the Science, Space, and Technology Full Committee. And on that committee, I've been able to hopefully influence how we move forward with our space program. But it's not just that. That committee also um, pretty much oversees NASA and the National Science Foundation. Right now, we are looking at how we bring back the space program, not just to go to the moon, but to push forward from the moon to Mars. But it's not just space travel, it is about the research that is done, not just at the International Space Station, but also done on those spaceships as we have crewed spaceships to move to the ISS. We just passed the NASA reauthorization bill that is going to continue to fund NASA, not at the levels that I think it should, but greater than what the president is allowing. When we talk about space and all of those things connected, I think people just think about a rocket ship going to the moon. But this is also about security of our nation. We have to stay more than just competitive with China and Russia because they will use access to information by way of research to control the atmosphere in ways that America should be making sure that we are protecting airspace and protecting, our country and the world. On um, my transportation and infrastructure committee, I think, what we do by way of transit is not just about how we move people, but it's also about how we protect the environment. And that we are moving forward with technology that will not just lower emissions, but also help us to travel safely. And with the use of AI and other technologies that remove humans, in many cases, from the safety aspect, we have to make sure that we are being safe by ensuring that humans are controlling what is happening by way of transportation. As it relates to infrastructure, in many of our cities, we have aging infrastructure, particularly as it relates to water and sewer. And so we're going to be at the top of providing clean water. We're providing clean air. We have to make sure that we are helping local governments and state governments provide funding for that. When I think of in my own district, the aging water systems that local governments cannot afford to do the repair or to do the renewals, they need help from the federal government. And these are tax dollars that are going back to our local municipalities so that they can do that work. So I feel good about that work. I have been able to introduce and get legislation passed for our environmental concerns. My bill, the Impact Act, will provide legislation that will bring together public-private partnerships to research and provide the technologies that will lower carbon emissions that are produced by the production of cement, concrete, and asphalt. Understanding that 8% of the carbon emissions worldwide come from the production of cement, concrete, and asphalt. So that's a bill, a bipartisan bill that has passed the House twice. Now it is being taken up in the Senate. So I'm proud of that work, proud to be in the minority, but able to forge bipartisan relationships such that we can get something done.
I think that's important to remind people that there is still the work of the people that are getting done, even in this politically toxic time. You, in addition to working across the aisle around legislation, you in this environment have secured over $21 million in community project funding to send back to your district. And I think that's quite an accomplishment in a divided Congress. I would also say some of your thinking about how does Washington federal legislation connect to the states and to the local municipalities is because of your your experience as being a state legislative leader in North Carolina. Can you share a little bit about how in this, as we move into the midterm elections, how are you continuing to deliver for your district in this political climate?
Thank you for that. I am really proud of that because, again, as I said earlier, these are taxpayer dollars that come from the district that go to Washington, D.C., and for us to be able to bring back some of that funding to be used here is an accomplishment that I'm proud of. We were able to bring back funding for affordable housing, for infrastructure, for transportation, that in and of itself, particularly as it relates to affordable housing, I think, that's an issue across this country. And in a district such as mine that has the Research Triangle area, to have that kind of hub, that economic hub, but then not to be able to provide adequate housing for our workers just doesn't make sense. To be able to do that, and again to help local municipalities with transportation issues, when you talk about providing access to buses that are electric buses and not, gas using buses, such that, you're continuing to pollute the air. That's I'm proud to say that we're able to do that. And our municipalities are grateful for this opportunity. There are 14 members from North Carolina in the House. Only 4 of us are Democrats. I led Democrats in bringing back that funding. And number 6, with the total delegation of 14. So that means that I was able to acquire more funding than 5 of the Republicans, and they're in the majority. And I would say to you, a lot of that has to do with the relationships that are built, but also with how these applications are submitted. That my staff works with the local governments to make sure that what they are submitting is in the best shape it can be, so that it can be considered competitively and rise to the top, such that that funding is given to those projects. We're not just proud of the work we do, but proud of the work that the municipalities do, understanding that it has to be presented in such a way that it's going to be perceived as important, and that the money is being used wisely.
Well, thank you for an update from Washington.
Sure.
This was certainly a busy week, a defining week.
A defining week, absolutely.
And a defining week on the government side, right? Seeing
Mm-hmm.
how our government is moving, and moving with our taxpayer dollars, how it is moving in regards to the values of Americans across this country. So thank you for being the person that gets on that plane every week to go
I
do the
drive.
district.
I drive, Glynda.
Oh, you drive? You drive? What?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, we need to have a conversation about
Yeah.
that.
Very seldom do I fly. I hate flying.
Oh, that's good to know. And so I'm assuming you listen to a lot of, you get a lot of calls done, and you listen to a lot of audibles. So you
That
know
part.
what you're listening to.
That's right.